Hello and happy end of day. Absolutely nothing is ready. As is usual. I'm not even on the right chapter because for some reason it decided, what chapter do I need to do? 40, what's the end? 40, I think it's 46. What did I do this morning? But for some reason it decided to go back to the beginning of chapter I did a couple of days ago. No idea why. Because it's weird. All right, I can close out of that. I need this open. Boop. Okay. We're doing chapter 46. Cancel. Dang it, cancel. Gotta change my narrator name. Three Musketeers. The R and the S are reversed. There we go. Three Musketeers. By the time books. Three Musketeers. Open. Okay. There we go. So we're at the end of a day now. I'm trying to get 2 episodes done and then stop. Welcome to Bite at a Time Books, where we read you your favorite classics one bite at a time. My name is Bree Carlisle, and I love to read and wanted to share my passion with listeners like you. All of the links for our show are in the show notes. Today we will be continuing The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. I just picked the next book today, so I'm trying to do, I think it'd be a good pattern to go back and forth from like guy book, girl book, guy book, girl book. Because I did, let's see, Secret Garden. I mean, not judging. I mean, guys can listen and girls can listen to whatever they want to, but it just seems like, for example, when I did Jane Eyre, a lot of my social media hits were women, like the majority of the demographics. This one, I don't know because I forgot how to go look at that. So I was judging mostly on Facebook stuff, but I haven't looked at it for Three Musketeers. I would imagine it's mostly men. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. Anyways, I just know that less people are listening now than did during Jane Eyre. Not by a lot, just by a little. But so I did Secret Garden I started with, and then I did Dorian Gray, which was, I mean, a mixed bag. That book was weird. And then Peter Pan, which is kind of a kid's book, and Jungle Book, which is kind of a kid's book. And then we did Christmas Story, which was guest hosted. And then we went to Jane Eyre. And then now Three Musketeers. So the next one will be another lighter, we'll go with lighter book. So this one's very like dramatic and fighting and lots of that. So we're going to go to a nicer love story-y book, which is my preferred. I want to do Anne of Green Gables, but I would like to do those. I either need to figure out how to get permission, which I tried to email them because most of the books are public domain, but there's like 1 or 2 of them, 2 or 3 of them that are not public domain yet and won't be for a while because they were published after her death. And so anyways, let's get to this. 46. I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
Dumas.
46. The Bastion, Saint-Gervais. On arriving at the lodgings of his 3 friends, D'Artagnan found them assembled in the same chamber. Athos was meditating. Porthos was twisting his mustache. Aramis was saying his prayers in a charming little book of hours bound in blue velvet. Pardieu, gentlemen, said he, I hope what you have to tell me is worth the trouble, or else, I warn you, I will not pardon you for making me come here instead of getting a little rest after a night spent in talking and dismantling a bastion. Why were you not there, gentlemen? It was warm work.
It's warm work.
We were in a place where it was not very cold, replied Porthos, giving his mustache a twist which was peculiar to him.
Peculiar to him.
Hush, said Athos. Oh, said D'Artagnan, comprehending the slight frown of the Musketeer. It appears there's something fresh aboard.
Fresh aboard.
Aramis, said Athos, you went to breakfast the day before yesterday at the inn of the Parpilliot, I believe.
I believe.
Yes. How did you fare? For my part, I ate but little. The day before yesterday was a fish day, and they had nothing but meat.
But meat?
What? Said Athos. No fish at a seaport?
A seaport?
They say, said Aramis, resuming his pious reading, that the dike which the cardinal is making drives them all out into the open sea.
Open sea?
But that is not quite what I mean to ask you, Aramis, replied Athos. I want to know if you were left alone and nobody interrupted you. Itch.
Interrupted you?
Why, I think there were not many intruders. Yes, Athos, I know what you mean. We shall do very well at the Parpilliot.
Parpilliot?
Let us go to the Parpilliot, then, for here the walls are like sheets of paper.
Sheets of paper?
D'Artagnan, who was accustomed to his... Blah, blah, blah. I've been narrating for hours. So my talking gets a little... Telling my husband yesterday, I'm like, towards the end of the day, I feel like all the words are gone. Like, my brain is just so many words that at the end of the day, it's just like, nope, we're done with the words.
Sheets of paper?
D'Artagnan, who was accustomed to his friend's manner of acting, and who perceived immediately by a word, a gesture, or a sign from him that the circumstances were serious, took Athos's arm and went out without saying anything. Porthos followed, chatting with Aramis. On their way, they met Grimaud. Athos made a sign to come with them. Grimaud, according to custom, obeyed in silence. The poor lad had nearly come to the pass of forgetting how to speak. They arrived at the drinking room of the Parpilliot. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and daylight began to appear. The three friends ordered breakfast and went into a room in which the host said they would not be disturbed. The dog just shook. My mic doesn't tend to pick those things up. Unfortunately, the hour was badly chosen for a private conference. The morning drum had just been beaten. Everyone shook off the drowsiness of night, and to dispel the humid morning... Unfortunately, the hour was badly chosen for a private conference. The morning drum had just been beaten. Everyone shook off the drowsiness of night, and to dispel the humid morning air came to take a drop at the inn. Dragoons, Swiss, guardsmen, musketeers, light horsemen succeeded one another with a rapidity which might answer the purpose of the host very well, but agreed badly with the views of the four friends. Thus they applied very curtly to the salutations, healths, and jokes of their companions. I see how it will be, said Athos. We shall get into some pretty quarrel or other, and we have no need of one just now. D'Artagnan, tell us what sort of a night you have had, and we will describe ours afterward. Ah, yes, said a light horseman, with a glass of brandy in his hand, which he sipped slowly. I hear you, gentlemen of the guards, have been in the trenches tonight, and that you did not get much of the... I hear you, gentlemen of the guards, have been in the trenches tonight, and that you did not get much the best of the Rochelles. D'Artagnan looked at Athos to know if he ought to reply to this intruder who thus mixed unasked in their conversation. Well, said Athos, don't you hear Monsieur de Busigny, who does you the honor to ask you a question? Relate what has passed during the night, since these gentlemen desire to know it. Have you not taken a Bastion? Said a Swiss, who was drinking rum out of a beer glass. Yes, monsieur, said D'Artagnan, bowing. We have had that honor. We even have, as you may have heard, introduced a barrel of powder under one of the angles, which in blowing up made a very pretty breach. Without reckoning that as the Bastion was not built yesterday, all the rest of the building was badly shaken. And what Bastion is it? Asked a dragoon, with his saber run through a goose which he was taking to be cooked. The Bastion Saint-Gervais, replied D'Artagnan, from behind which the Rochellais annoyed our workmen. Was that affair hot?
The fair hot?
Yes, moderately so. We lost 5 men, and the Rochellais 8 or 10.
8 or 10.
Bas bleu, said the Swiss, who, notwithstanding the admirable collection of oaths possessed by the German language, had acquired a habit of swearing in French.
In French.
But it is probable, said the light horseman, that they will send pioneers this morning to repair the bastion.
Or the Bastion,
Yes, that's probable, said D'Artagnan.
said D'Artagnan.
Gentlemen, said Athos, a wager.
A wager.
Ah, ooh, a wager, cried the Swiss. What is it? Said the light horseman.
Light horseman.
Stop a bit, said the dragoon, placing his saber like a spit upon the 2 large iron dogs which held the firebrands in the chimney. Stop a bit. I am in it.
I am in it.
You cursed host, a dripping pan immediately, that I may not lose a drop of the fat of this estimable bird.
Estimable bird.
You was right, said the Swiss. Goose grease is good with bastry. Oh, goodness. So today I'm halfway through the next book I'm narrating. I'm trying to get ahead in podcast stuff because I'm going out of town for 3 days. So need to have podcast stuff ready.
The bastry.
There, said the dragoon. Now for the wager. We listen, Monsieur Athos. Yes, the wager, said the light horseman.
Light horseman.
Well, Monsieur de Busigny, I will bet you, said Athos, that my 3 companions, Messieurs Porthos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan, and myself, will go and breakfast in the Bastion Saint-Gervais, and we will remain there an hour by the watch, whatever the enemy may do to dislodge us.
Dislodge us.
Porthos and Aramis looked at each other. They began to comprehend.
Comprehend.
But, said D'Artagnan in the air of Athos, you are going to get us all killed without mercy.
Without mercy.
We are much more likely to be killed, said Athos, if we do not go.
Do not go.
My faith, gentlemen, said Porthos, turning round upon his chair and twisting his mustache. That's a fair bet, I hope.
Bet, I hope.
I take it, said Monsieur de Busigny, so let us fix the stake.
The stake.
You are 4 gentlemen, said Athos, and we are 4. An unlimited dinner for 8. Will that do?
Will that do?
Capitally, said Monsieur de Busigny. Perfectly, said the dragoon. That shoots me, said the Swiss.
Said the Swiss.
The 4th auditor, who
Said the Swiss.
The 4th auditor, who during all this conversation had played a mute part, made a sign of the head in proof that he acquiesced in the proposition.
Proposition.
The breakfast for these gentlemen is ready, said the host. Well, bring it in, said Athos.
Said Athos.
The host obeyed. Athos called Grimaud, pointed to a large basket which lay in a corner, and made a sign to him to wrap the viands up in the napkins.
Napkins.
Grimaud understood that it was to be a breakfast on the grass, took the basket, packed up the viands, added the bottles, and then took the basket on his arm.
On his arm.
But where are you going to eat my breakfast? Asked the host.
Asked the host.
What matter if you are paid for it, said Athos, and he threw 2 pistoles majestically on the table.
On the table.
Shall I give you the change, my officer? Said the host.
Said the host.
No, only add 2 bottles of champagne, and the difference will be for the napkins.
Napkins.
The host had not quite so good a bargain as he had at first hoped for, but he made amends by slipping in 2 bottles of Anjou wine instead of 2 bottles of champagne.
Of champagne.
Monsieur de Busigny, said Athos, will you be so kind as to set your watch with mine, or permit me to regulate mine by yours?
By yours?
Which you please, monsieur, said the light horseman, drawing from his fob a very handsome watch studded with diamonds. 7:30.
7.
35 minutes after 7, said Athos, by which you perceive I am 5 minutes faster than you. Oof.
Faster than you.
And bowing to all the astonished persons present, the young men took the road to the Bastion Saint-Gervais, followed by Grimaud, who carried the basket, ignorant of where he was going, but in the passive obedience which Athos had taught him, not even thinking of asking. As long as they were within the circle of the camp, the 4 friends did not exchange one word.
one word.
Besides, they were followed by the curious, who, hearing of the wager, were anxious to know how they would come out of it.
Come out of it.
But when once they passed the line of circumvallation and found themselves in the open plain, D'Artagnan, who was completely ignorant of what was going forward, thought it was time to demand an explanation.
Explanation.
"And now, my dear Athos," said he, "do me the kindness to tell me where we are going."
Where we are going.
"Why, you see plainly enough we are going to the Bastion. But what are we going to do there?"
Going to do there.
"You know well that we go to breakfast there. But why did we not breakfast at the Parpaliet?"
Parpaliet.
"Because we have very important matters to communicate to one another, and it was impossible to talk 5 minutes in that inn without being annoyed by all those
Parpaliet.
Because we have very important matters to communicate to one another, and it was impossible to talk 5 minutes in that inn without being annoyed by all those importunate fellows who kept coming in, saluting you and addressing you. Here, at least," said Athos, pointing to the Bastion, "they will not come and disturb us."
Disturb us.
"It appears to me," said D'Artagnan, with that prudence which allied himself.
Disturb us.
"It appears to me," said D'Artagnan, with that prudence which allied itself in him so naturally with excessive bravery, "that we could have found some retired place on the downs or the seashore, where we should have been seen, all four conferring together, so that at
For the seashore.
So, where am I?
For the seashore.
Where we should have been seen, all four conferring together, so
For the seashore.
Where we should have been seen, all four conferring together, so that at the end of a quarter of an hour the cardinal would have been informed by his spies that we were holding a council."
In a council.
"Yes," said Aramis, "Athos is right. Animid adventurer in desertis." "A desert would not have been amiss," said Porthos, "but it behooved us to find it."
To find it.
"There is no desert where a bird cannot pass over one's head, where a fish cannot leap out of the water, where a rabbit cannot come out of its burrow.
Of its burrow.
And I believe that bird, fish, and rabbit each become a spy of the cardinal.
Of the cardinal.
Better, then, pursue our enterprise, from which, besides, we cannot retreat without shame.
Without shame.
We have made a wager which could not have been foreseen, and of which I defy anyone to define the true cause.
True cause.
We are going, in order to win it, to remain an hour in the Bastion.
In the Bastion.
Either we shall be attacked or not.
Or not.
If we are not, we shall have all the time to talk and nobody will hear us, for I guarantee the walls of the Bastion have no ears. If we are, we will talk of our affairs just the same.
Just the same.
Moreover, in defending ourselves, we shall cover ourselves with glory. You see that everything is to our advantage."
Advantage.
"Yes," said D'Artagnan, "but we shall indubitably attract a ball."
Attract a ball.
"Well, my dear," replied Athos, "you know well that the balls most to be dreaded are not from the enemy.
From the enemy.
But for such an expedition,
From the enemy.
we surely ought to have brought our muskets."
Our muskets.
"You are stupid, friend Porthos. Why should we load ourselves with a useless burden?"
Useless burden.
"I don't find a good musket, 12 cartridges, and a powder flask very useless in the face of an enemy." True story. Oh, almost to the end. Short chapter. Good.
Of an enemy.
"Well," replied Athos, "have you not heard what D'Artagnan said?"
D'Artagnan said.
"What did he say?" demanded Porthos.
Did Porthos.
"D'Artagnan said that in the attack of last night, 8 or 10 Frenchmen were killed and as many Rochellais." "What then?"
What then?
"The bodies were not plundered, were they? It appears the conquerors had something else to do."
Nothing else to do.
"Well?"
Well,
we shall find their muskets, their cartridges, and their flasks, and instead of 4 musketoons and 12 balls, we shall have 15 guns and 100 charges to fire."
charges to fire.
"Oh, Athos," said Aramis, "truly you are a great man."
A great man.
Porthos
A great man.
Porthos nodded in sign of agreement. D'Artagnan alone did not seem convinced.
Seem convinced.
Grimaud no doubt shared the misgivings of the young man, for seeing that they continued to advance toward the Bastion, something he had till then doubted, he pulled his master by the skirt of his coat. "Where are we going?" asked he by a gesture. Athos pointed to the Bastion. "But," said Grimaud in the same silent dialect, "we shall leave our skins there." Athos raised his eyes and his finger toward heaven. Grimaud put his basket on the ground and sat down with a shake of the head. Athos took a pistol from his belt, looked to see if it was properly primed, cocked it, and placed the muzzle close to Grimaud's ear. Grimaud was on his legs again as if by a spring. Athos then made him a sign to take up his basket and to walk on first. Grimaud obeyed. All that Grimaud gained by this momentary pantomime was to pass from the rear guard to the vanguard. Arrived at the Bastion, the four friends turned round. More than 300 soldiers of all kinds were assembled at the gate of the camp, and in a separate group might be distinguished Monsieur de Busigny, the dragoon, the Swiss, and the fourth better. Athos took off his hat, placed it on the end of his sword, and waved it in the air. All the spectators returned him his salute, accompanying this courtesy with a loud hurrah which was audible to the four. After which all four disappeared in the Bastion, whither Grimaud had preceded them. Next, they're going to talk about the weird chimney pipe listening, or stovepipe. Thank you for joining Bite at a Time Books today, while we read a bite of one of your favorite classics. All of the links for our show are in the show notes. We are part of the Bite at a Time Books Productions Network. If you ever wondered what inspired your favorite classic novelists to write their stories, what was happening in their lives or the world at the time, check out Bite at a Time Books Behind the Story, Tuesdays wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, my name is Bree Carlisle, and I hope you come back tomorrow while we take the next bite of the Three Musketeers. Doop. Thanks, guys.